Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO. Joining us on the phones this morning, Texas State Senator Charles Perry. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. I'm glad to be on it. I'm glad you let me get on here and kind of play CPA for a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a question yesterday from a texter asking about SBA loans and the SBA, I guess, disaster loans that are out there. Talk about that a little bit, because I guess there's a little bit of confusion and still maybe some things up in the air about this.
Yeah, let me tell you on two fronts. I want to talk to you about the SBA loan or lack thereof today real quick, and then I want to encourage employers to go to a website to get engaged in that conversation. And then thirdly, I want to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday with the stimulus money, the second phase, I guess it would be, for a Family Paid Leave Act.
Okay.
And thinking a couple. So first of all, the SBA, there is no money appropriated for an SBA bailout, if you will, for economic injury disaster loans. That's EIDL. It's an existing program. And Texas Department of Emergency Management, or TDEM, is the person or the agency responsible for initiating that. So effectively, the governor's designation that Texas wants to be qualified for any EIDL loans, emergency disaster loans through SBA, made that proclamation or that statement or asked for that designation. That set the wheels in motion for Texas Department of Emergency Management to be able to start down that road. So specifically, the employers in every county, we have to have one request per county in order for that county to be eligible for future economic disaster loans or grants or lending or any kind of dollars that may be appropriated in the third phase, which is currently being discussed. Need to fill out an application. Not every employer has to have the application on file, but every county has to have at least one application for that county to qualify. So the website that you would go to do that is TDEM, TEDEM, PARECOVERY at TDEM.texas.gov. It's a one-page application. It is employer-specific, and it's going to ask questions like, what is your damage, when does it start, when does it end? Obviously, those are not known today. I've got an inquiry into the agency as to whether we just put in that ongoing and unknown or undetermined as of today, but we just need that to happen so that when the SBA money is appropriated, if so, through this third phase that's currently being talked about, those employers will be in the loop, but then it will be state and nationwide that the application process itself. I have dealt with this over 37 years of practice throughout some natural disasters and other disasters, but we are now in the process of getting that declaration solidified, and there's no loss of money today if you don't get in there on that website, but it would be good for as many employers that are impacted, specifically service industry, to be on that website showing support for the need of a declaration of an SBA package coming down.
Can you give that website out one more time?
Yeah, TDEM. It's TDEM, PARECOVERY at TDEM, TDEM.texas.gov. If you go to Texas Emergency Disaster and go to their website, it's pretty clear where you need to go. It's one-pager. And again, it doesn't guarantee you money. It doesn't guarantee the state will be part of that money if designated, but it is a part of the process that we need to be engaged in.
Okay.
Secondly, and this is all in discussion in the third phase, the $1 trillion bucket that's being talked at the federal today. So no money has been appropriated for small business loans. I guess that's the overriding. There's a lot of employers think there's this big money that they can apply for and get. Our service industries are getting hit hard. The restaurant business, I hope that local lenders can bridge the gap, so to speak, through declines. Our small business, our less than 50 employee companies are the backbone of the country. It has to address, if there's addressing to be done, it has to address those people. And I think SBA packages will support reimbursement at some point, or the banks may be part of that conversation for sure. So hopefully they'll be able to do that. Secondly, and probably more of a practical or defensive measure for me, this new money for Family Leave Act. There's a 12-week Family Leave Act that most people are not subjected to if they're under 50, but the way they're looking at administrating what was passed and appropriated yesterday is through the Family Leave Act, which basically is 12 weeks, paid family leave, if you're affected by the virus directly, or if you're a caregiver for someone in your family that has it, or if you're a caregiver for a daycare child that no longer has daycare open. So pretty broad, pretty weak, and it is an opt-out for 50 or under employees, best I can tell. So meaning you will be subjected to it unless if you're under 50 employees, and you will opt out with waivers. That said, the way the Act's currently being interpreted, there would be a $200 per day per credit back to the employer once they file their tax returns for that quarter's payroll, up to $511 for the actual employee. The $200 a day would be for the caregiver. So you'll get your money back partially, but you may not get it all back. And secondly, you are subjected to it if someone finds themselves in that situation, even as a small employer. And probably administratively, paid sick leave is already a part of the payroll system, but very, 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 very few companies engage that process. So be sure that your payroll processing company, if it's QuickBooks that you're using, if it's something you do internally, that there are proper boxes checked, so to speak, so that wages are processed correctly, or you will find yourself in a letter-writing campaign with the Internal Revenue Service for months and cost you great administrative costs and headache if you have to be in that. So it's already kind of accommodated, and it's probably the most efficient way if you're going to go down this path to do it as a feds, but it does require someone that does payroll to understand that clearly, or they will find themselves in a mess. So it's a lot of information, a little more in the weeds than probably people want to like. So I guess the overriding deal is, first of all, there's no SBA disaster money available today, but it's in the works. Secondly, the actual plan that was appropriated yesterday out of the Senate that will go to the desk, I'm sure, for signing if it needs signing, is going to affect family leave, which is those people that feel like they've been affected by the virus. And let me clarify that. If some employee tells you that they feel ill, they do not need to run to the ER or the physician. They need to call 211 or call the local health department, answer a series of questions, and then it is determined they need to come in for testing. The worst thing that can happen, and what we've been trying to prevent, is people running to our healthcare providers, infecting them, taking them out of the care system. So, but all employers, under what was passed yesterday, based on the current reading of it, and it's hard because it's fluid, is that all employers will need to make available to those employees that have kids at home that have no daycare facilities today, or feel like they may be ill and are currently tested and the virus has impacted them. So that's unique because usually 50 employer companies or better are not usually included in these.
Yeah.
And it is literally an opt-out provision if the interpretation of what's passed yesterday, and I qualify it, that's the way it's being interpreted. I think it's probably logical based on the national narrative and the state and local narratives that have been put out.
Senator Perry, let me ask you this. Can I put you on hold and then come back? Because I got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
Let's do that. Let's go to break. When we come back, a couple more questions for Texas State Senator Charles Perry here on the Chad Hasty Show. All right, Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO. Texas State Senator Charles Perry joining us once again. Just a couple of questions that I have for you and your opinion on some things. The governor is expected to announce today some extra plans, some extra steps maybe at a statewide idea of limiting restaurants and limiting bars, maybe how many people can, gather in one place. How do you think the state's response has been, and do you think there needs to be a statewide mandate on this?
Well, it's a hard answer, and the reason I answer it that way is when we look back, and to date we've got 30 million people in this state, and we've only had 3 fatalities, which that's 3. If you're impacted directly that way, families and members, it's a sad loss. But if you look at the other countries around the world that have had this creep up, we have learned their lessons the hard way. And so the answer to your question is I'm not sure what the governor's going to propose today. There's always rumors and speculation prior to. But if we look out here in 30 to 60 days, and we believe that April 15th range is kind of a scenario or a big date as to this virus has been known and in the system and out of the system long enough to where we can see if we've gotten ahead of it. So in time will tell. We look back and we've had a very few fatalities considering the population and the potential of how many carriers there are out there. I guess the answer will be it was the right call.
Yeah.
If we don't head it off or mitigate it, then, the answer is B, it wasn't enough. Politically, you can't win this debate.
Yeah.
I'm also cognizant of the fact that we as a state, along with the gas and oil wars that were started prior to the virus conversation, have to pay for. And as a country, we have to pay for some of these measures. So, and I think that unfortunately, when we set these limits, and rightfully or wrongfully, and time will tell, and it's one of those deals that you won't know probably, but
yeah.
the same thing is we are a country of small business owners. And as these stimulus and dollars are discussed and impact studies are done, big companies matter from a perception, and obviously large employer in a kind of a manufacturing chain and stuff, but it's those 10 employee restaurants and all of those folks that need to have strong consideration, because it's the small employer groups that are going to get us back in vogue, so to speak.
Yeah.
We are a consumer-driven economy, and the quicker we can get people back into these places spending money and doing the things that are normal to us as a country, the faster that the economic turn will occur. So that's my only caution is how we go about response at a federal and state level. We need to keep in mindset that we have to live another day once this is over, and what those days look like are really in our control on a lot of things we're doing. So wherever the governor goes today, so far, we can argue, I guess, that we've had 3 fatalities of the 30 million people. Comparatively speaking to some other countries, that's not what was happening. So I would say it's been successful. It's been painful, and I hope that we are measured in any more responses. But I would also qualify that if you're diagnosed, the odds are is you're going to feel bad for a while, a week or so. Number 2, there is no cure for it. Just like anything else that's viable, you have to wait it out, and that it's not the end of the world if you get it. So just 2 more weeks is kind of what we're telling, 2 to 3, 4 weeks at the most. We should have a very clear indicator as to if this thing is over. Does it have a new life, or have we dodged a big bullet? So
yeah.
Patience, caution, and compliance. Our cities in my district have been very responsible, and I think we're on the right track. So we'll just say it this way. Whatever the government is doing, state and from a federal perspective, seems to be mitigating. I think last count there was less than 100 deaths out of 330 million people in the country. So you hate to see that there was 100 deaths, but 100 deaths or less, but you have to say maybe we're on to something that we need to close the door on and finish.
Yep. All right, Texas State Senator Charles Perry, as always, appreciate your time, and let's visit again soon after
Sure.
all this is done.
Well, if anybody has questions about relief dollars in the system or not in the system or how that's going to affect their business, please feel free to call their accountants or CPAs, or they can call my Senate office, and as soon as phone lines clear, I will be able to get back to them.
All right.
All right?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Texas State Senator Charles Perry.